Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome back to Rabbits, the novel by Terry Miles. We're continuing our journey down the rabbit hole, seeing where this is going and how things are twisting and turning, and the subtleties and the insanity that comes from it.
Can we continue this tomorrow? A late breakfast at the diner. Of course, I said. Great. Scarpio pulled a small black leather case from his pocket.
You know, I think anytime a multi-billionaire asks you for, hey, why don't we do a late breakfast? I would be in. I'm not going to lie. I'd be in.
Took out a business card and handed it to me. It had been printed on some kind of thick, off-white material. Linen or bamboo, maybe.
Yeah, bamboo is really cool, though. Because you can use bamboo to make shirts, blankets. In fact, this behind me, this tapestry behind me is bamboo. It's printed bamboo curtain thing behind me. You can make cards, paper. I mean, bamboo like hemp is really cool that way.
On the card was nothing but a phone number. Let's meet back at that diner at 11 tomorrow morning to continue our discussion, he said. Give me a call if you have a conflict and we'll set something else up. But this is important, and I'd really appreciate it if you could make it.
Yeah, if a billionaire afforded me the opportunity to go to breakfast with him, I'd make damn sure I could make it.
He got into the car, started it up, and rolled down the driver's side window. I'll be there, I said, working extremely hard to stop myself from grinning like an idiot.
Yeah, that would be me.
I'll see you tomorrow, he said, and then he guided the shiny black sedan away from the curb, down the street, and out into the night. I stood there for a long time after his taillights had faded into the distance, doing my best to digest what had just happened. I was initially surprised that Alan Scarpio didn't have a driver, but after thinking back on our conversation, it kind of made sense.
I mean, if you're a billionaire and you're going to do something kind of clandestine, you have the ability to make sure the witnesses are going to be to a minimal. And if you have any concern that a driver or a chauffeur or a colleague or an employee may go to the papers or write a memoir, you kind of cut them out of the circle.
For a billionaire, Scarpio was definitely what you'd call down to earth. Except for the part where he'd allegedly won a fortune playing a potentially deadly secret underground game that most people had never heard of.
That's kind of... that has its own weirdness to it.
Notes on the game. Missive by Hazel. Authenticated by blockchain.
Yeah, I'm not real sure how blockchain works. I don't know, with all the research and all the stuff that I found that Terry Miles has done, I imagine he has a pretty good grasp on it.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. A man walks into a dead letter office and asks the person in charge of the facility if they'd be willing to keep their eyes open for one very particular stamp. It was pressed into service in 1932, and on the front of the stamp is what appears to be an Arctic hare.
Interesting.
The stamp comes from the country of Thurland.
Not sure if that's real or not.
Now, if you know anything at all about geography, You're aware that Thurland doesn't exist.
Ah, there we go.
It remains, however, a beautiful stamp. I've seen it. There's something about the stamp that makes you feel strange. Like you know you've seen it before. Like you've been aware of its existence your entire life.
Yeah, that's that. I wonder if that plays into like the collective unconscious, the collective unconsciousness. Ugh, I gotta learn how to talk. And all that stuff, crazy stuff going around.
Figuring out what's important from the static they use to confuse us is a key aspect of achieving success in the game of life. This game isn't so different.
Well, yeah, video games do that. They try to keep you on your toes through misdirection. So this game would be no different.
Just because you're convinced there's a dangerous secret process running beneath a secret world doesn't mean there isn't a dangerous secret process running beneath a secret world.
Or the old proverb of because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Or one of my favorite quotes is from the fictional character Spider Jerusalem from Ellis Wyatt's Transmetropolitan, and that is, a paranoid is simply somebody who has all the facts.
Hazel 8. Chapter 4. The Passenger Discrepancy.
Yeah, this title is just, it's kind of cool, to be honest with you. I like it.
My parents died when I was 17. I can't say that it happened suddenly, because I have no idea how long they were trapped inside that capsized ferry before they eventually succumbed to the freezing cold water.
Did they succumb to the freezing cold water, or did they drown? I'm not sure how that works, or, you know.
My mother was an only child, and my father's brother, an uncle I'd never met, declined familial custody. All of my grandparents were dead by that point, which left me almost completely alone as far as family goes.
That's never good.
I'd already graduated high school and was waiting to start college in the fall. I had no desire to sample the hospitality of the foster care system, so rather than take my chances with social services, I fought to become emancipated by court order.
And I don't know in this day and age how hard that is, but in the 80s, especially in a tragic situation, depending on where you are, like if you're like 16, 17 years old, and say you have an advanced intelligence and you've already graduated high school or what have you, it's fairly easy.
It was easy. I represented myself. They don't recommend it, but what do they know? Trust me, there's no way you would have said no either if you'd seen me up there. Just 17 years old, arguing my case in legalese like the main character in a coming-of-age comedy from the early 90s.
The thing is at 17, depending if she just turned 17, or she'd been 17 for a few months, 6 months, 9 months, or what have you, or how close to 18 she was, it may not have been her argument. It just may have been, a logical choice by the courts to do.
I received a modest amount of money from my parents' passing, which I eventually invested in the stock market.
A modest amount? Let's define modest, please.
I did a shit ton of research and practiced using mock stocks in a simulated investment environment for a full year before I did any real investing. My ability to pick out deeply embedded patterns and casual fluctuations.
There we go. The whole pattern thing, which we discussed she discussed in an earlier video,
resulted in my turning 70,000 fake dollars into almost 400,000 fake dollars. The following year, I invested my money for real. Then I sold my parents' house, and purchased a modest apartment in Capitol Hill.
Now, how do you purchase an apartment? I mean, being in Texas, I mean, it happens. I see stuff, you know, in the news and TV programs and stuff where people buy an apartment like you would buy a house. That is a concept that is fairly alien to me just because of my upbringing in Texas with the whole the just Texas. We don't, and especially like I grew up in a small town, Carpus Cove, in military base, and now where I live just outside of Huntsville, you don't have that. I wonder if they do in Houston. That might be something I need to check out, like Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, places like that. I don't know. It's intriguing, to be honest with you.
I was a young adult living in a hip neighborhood in Seattle, in a home I'd purchased with my own money.
My mom grew up, I don't think she grew up on Queen Anne Hill proper, but it was fairly close. I don't know the relation. Well, I mean, my mom grew up in the 50s, so there's that time discrepancy and all that good silly stuff. But I just wonder. I may have to look up a map of Seattle just, you know, to see the relationships and how these neighborhoods are in this day and age.
Coasting through college with a GPA much higher than I deserved. I should have taken things more seriously, put more work into my studies, but what did I do instead? I played games.
Yep. That is, I have a real good friend of mine who almost back in the late 80s, early 90s when he was going to SAM, who damn near failed out of college because of Dungeons and Dragons.
And after graduation, while everybody I knew was taking global surf trips, pretzeling themselves into enlightenment at an ashram in India, downing ridiculous amounts of cheap beer with the other American tourists in Prague, or going on any number of other adventures.
Notice she said beer. I was expecting, even though I've read the book and knew that it was beer, I always expect something else, you know, maybe the devil's lettuce or something like that to show up.
I was doing something else. I was playing games. I'd played games when my parents had been alive, of course. But after they died, I spent every minute outside of work and school devoted to nothing else. Focusing my attention on games resulted in my becoming a little bit more social, and it had another added benefit. It helped me avoid thinking about what had happened to my parents.
Yeah, we all need our distractions. When my father passed away in 2021, I had found some distractions. He died from the plague of leftovers from the plague of 2020, and so yeah, no, he died in 2022. Excuse me. So yeah.
At first, the games were effective, and I was able to use them to not only calm my racing mind, but learn how to better interact with others. But
oh, I'm 54 years old and still don't interact with other people really well. It's the whole introvert thing.
Similar to a long-time drug user, the games I'd been playing began to lose their efficacy, and I needed more. So I started playing longer and sleeping less.
Hey, I've played that silly little game myself. the whole stay up for multiple days at a time, sleep for a few hours every so often, and eat occasionally. In fact, this past weekend, I got busy doing stuff, and for an entire 36 hours, the only thing I had to eat was a partial bag of potato chips. Then I went out and got stung like 14 times by leafcutter bees. So, really, really dumb shit like that.
From role-playing games to first-person shooters, online to dice on a table, I played them all. I became so obsessed that I was lucky if I managed to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night.
I don't know. When it came to role-playing games, I enjoy role-playing games. My favorite being Call of Cthulhu. D&D. D&D is okay, but D&D lost a lot of its allure when normies started playing it. So yeah, but yeah, I understand. I understand that. Now, video games. I have. Matter of fact, the night before I got married, I was playing Minecraft and wound up playing Minecraft to about an hour or so before the wedding. Got up, took a shower, got dressed, went over to where me and the wife were going to get married, or the girlfriend at the time. Then we got married and did all that rigmarole. And we got on the car to go on our honeymoon, and I was out like a light.
It was during this period that I joined an active online community of role-playing gamers, discovered alcohol in a big way, and narrowly avoided doing a long stint in a psychiatric facility.
See, there are people that are actually good friends of mine that will tell you that I probably should have been in a psychiatric facility several times when I was in my 20s. I make a lot of my own alcohol. I don't think I've bought alcohol. Well, in any kind of mass bulk alcohol. Every now and again, about once, maybe twice a year, I'll buy a 6-pack of, say, a specialty IPA or something. I'll go to the HEB World Market in the Woodlands and find something that I've never heard of or seen and pick it up. But as far as buying just alcohol to drink, usually no, I'm not a big alcohol drinker, and I can make a lot of the alcohol that I enjoy drinking. So it is what it is.
The court referred to it as a trespassing incident, but it was full-on breaking and entering.
Yeah. And with that, we'll go ahead and call this good here. And next time, we'll see what happened with her, what caused her breaking in and entering, and her incident. And till next time, be a good human, be good to other humans. Peace.